Shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this Civ overview, we're going to be looking at the new Mountain Royals DLC civilization, the Armenians. Officially, Armenians are an infantry and naval civilization, and there are good reasons for both of those labels, though you could easily argue an archer or monk civ label could be added as well, especially given their unique units. Where Georgians were a relatively straightforward cavalry civ, Armenians are pulled in a few different directions, so they take a bit more creativity in mixing and matching of units to be effective. Of course, the goal for this video is to help give a better sense of their bonuses and options to speed up that learning curve, or have a better idea of what to expect from opponents using this civilization. Let's check them out. Starting off, their team bonus is they and their allies' infantry have +2 line of sight. Rather than focus on this as a team bonus, I think this is most helpful for Armenians in 1v1s, where, for example, opening with militia or men-at-arms, that line of sight helps you stay out of town center fire and spot enemy villagers. Armenians are also among the most viable at playing the swordsman line in Castle Age, which again this helps out. Even in the late game though, this can occasionally be useful because of its impact on search radius, letting infantry spot enemies 2 tiles farther away than usual. It's not the best team bonus, but certainly has its uses for such an infantry-focused civilization. Moving on to their civ bonuses, the first is their mule carts cost 25% less, at 15 food and 75 wood. While technically they're not that much cheaper than regular camps in total, the mule cart itself could be considered a significant civ bonus, with the advantage of automatically following your lumberjacks to keep your efficiency up. One side effect of that is you tend to build a lot fewer of them than regular camps, saving you a good deal of wood. This stacks nicely with their next bonus, where mule cart technologies are 25% more effective. Since all of the regular camp technologies are at the mule cart, this impacts 3 different resource collection rates. Combined with the passive benefit of the mule cart, to give a bit of context, where a generic civilization gets about a 14% improvement from double bit axe once you factor in walking time over a 10-minute period, for Armenians the extra effect of double bit axe plus the mule cart keeping your efficiency up gives them about a 10% advantage on top of that, already in feudal age competing with Celts as a top tier wood gathering civilization. An extra boost then comes with every subsequent lumberjack technology, and after all wood upgrades are in my test, they ended up with about a 14% advantage. Any way you chop it, Armenians have pretty clearly the best late game lumberjacks, and are among the best in the mid game as well. Remember, gold and stone income are also helped out, improving by 19% instead of the usual 15%, and altogether this bonus gives you a very strong economic foundation to play off of. Speaking of which, their next civ bonus gives another mid to late game eco boost, this time with your first fortified church generating a free relic, good for an extra 30 gold per minute passive trickle from that point on. This synergizes nicely with the warrior priest unique unit created at that building, as well as providing a spot for villagers to garrison and a free arrow provided by the relic. This feels nowhere near as good as the 10% collection boost for Georgian churches, but it's still free gold, reminds you to collect other relics, and counts as a building prerequisite for Imperial Age. So if you think of it, this is an easy bonus to take advantage of, getting at least one fortified church in early Castle Age. So far, they don't really sound like an infantry civilization though, but that's where their next bonus comes in, which is that all of their barracks units, except for men-at-arms, are available 1 age earlier. This single bonus has a lot of implications. In Dark Age, it means you can prepare a welcome party of spearmen as you're advancing to feudal, say if you suspect your opponent is scout rushing. Then in feudal age, it becomes even more impactful, giving you the option of pikemen to deter enemy all-in scouts, or alternately, if your opponent hits Castle Age first and you know knights or camels are on the way, you can get a head start on upgrading to pikemen. Outside of those edge cases, the feudal longsword is also worth highlighting. They're still weak to archers, of course, but in an extended feudal men-at-arms strategy where you pick up supplies and really double down on 2 barracks, the longsword is giving your units plus 15 HP and plus 3 attack for only a little over the cost of 3 men-at-arms. Keep in mind, building HP is generally lower in feudal than Castle Age, so they're actually fairly effective against buildings, at least more so than you might be used to. Combining them with skirmishers can even help protect them against archers, and is a good combination to keep in mind. If anything, this bonus might peak in Castle Age though, where you have halberdiers with their much greater anti-cavalry bonus compared to pikes. You also get two-handed swordsman and champion in Castle Age, though personally I think the champion upgrade is a bit of a trap here, as it's quite expensive and hard for a Castle Age economy to accommodate while continuing to produce a useful number of units. The two-handed swordsman though is intriguing, as it's only a 300 food and 100 gold upgrade, giving longswords +3 attack and another +1 against buildings, making them stronger than even top-tier longswords, and able to take balanced trades against knights one-on-one. Just keep in mind you don't have the Imperial Age armor upgrade yet, so they're still quite vulnerable against crossbows. Of course, infantry have well-known inherent problems, like difficulty raiding enemy villagers and lacking mobility. But of all the civilizations that have a chance to make infantry work in the mid-game, I'd say Armenians have to be near the top of that list, whether it be through massing swordsmen and skirmishers, or an early transition to halberdiers against a cavalry civ in the mid-game. And finally, their last civ bonus is a naval one, giving an extra arrow to the galley line. This sounds massive, but the second arrow only does 1 damage, so against other galleys it only has a modest benefit. Probably the more useful case is against fire galleys or docks, where they actually deal 33% more damage. Unfortunately, after Feudal Age, this bonus, if anything, quietly fades away, as the galley line's base attack and upgrades improve, where +1 attack becomes less meaningful over time. Against the War Galley or Galleon, for example, it slips to just a 7% advantage, and that early 33% against fire ships falls to just 20% more damage. The point is, it's there and it is helping, but its effect depends on the matchup, and at best turns an otherwise balanced fight into a small victory. So that's the Armenians' bonuses, which in addition to setting you up with a great economy, clearly push you toward infantry and the galley line. The unique units take a bit of a detour though, so now let's take a look at those, starting with the Composite Bowman. This unit extends a relatively new game mechanic of ignoring enemy armor, this time though with the novel take that it's a ranged unit with that ability. Whether you're against a unit with -3 armor that's taken obu damage, all the way up to an elite skirmisher or elite huskarl, Composite Bowmen always deal 4 damage +1 for each blacksmith archer upgrade and chemistry, to a maximum of 8. The notable exceptions are buildings, naval, or siege units, including unique units that count as siege, including ballista elephants, Hussite wagons, and organ guns, all of which are unaffected, where the Composite Bowman just deals damage like a regular archer with frankly pretty terrible stats. I recently did a deep dive on this unit and how it compares to crossbows against many different levels of armor. The short version though, for overview's sake, is against very low pierce armor targets, things like pikemen or enemy archers. The regular crossbow line performs better from a combination of anti-pike bonus damage, as well as greater range and higher base attack. As soon as we start talking about knights though, especially with armor upgrades, or anything with more pierce armor than that, the Composite Bowman is going to be dealing a lot more damage, up to 6 times as much in Castle, and 8 times the damage per shot in Imperial Age. That's enough for them to trade roughly even with elite skirmishers, and have a higher DPS against pretty much everything in the late game, with the main drawback being their shorter range, leading to enemy crossbows, mangonels, and skirmishers outranging them, and those are the main things they struggle against. The best role for the unit is when you want a lot of DPS against anything like paladins, eagle warriors, Malian champions, or a unique unit like the Gulam or Rattan archer that rely on high pierce armor. In some ways, they're a lot like the Chuko Nu, countering a lot of anti-archer units, earning a similar label of being an anti-archer archer, though without the Chuko Nu's high damage to rams. While the Composite Bowman certainly has good use cases, one problem is it doesn't really address the Armenians' main weakness, with their infantry countered already by good archers and/or siege civilizations. The Composite Bowman doesn't really do much against those, so it's probably best used in specific matchups or just as a high damage output generalist in the late game against particularly infantry or cavalry civilizations. Armenians have a second unique unit though, this time at the fortified church, called the Warrior Priest, which functions as an alternative to the monk and combines some of the monk's abilities with the stats of an above average infantry unit. To start off, it's reasonably cheap at 30 food and 60 gold, and considering you'll probably already have a fortified church for the free relic, it shouldn't be too far out of your way. Stats-wise, it's better than a longsword, actually comparable in strength to an Armenian Castle Age champion, without the massive upfront cost of the champion upgrade mentioned earlier, though you do have to pick up the Monk Tech's Sanctity to get the most out of them on top of the regular infantry upgrades. As a generalist unit in Castle Age, it's pretty tanky, with the main drawback of taking anti-monk bonus damage from eagles and the scout line, giving it a few counters the regular swordsman doesn't have. They more than make up for that in Castle Age though, by being able to collect relics. It turns out they're created in nearly half the time as monks and move about 20% faster, even before being upgraded by fervor or squires, while also being able to fight off an enemy scout one-on-one, meaning they can basically guarantee you get the majority, if not all, the relics on the map. In Imperial Age, they lack an elite upgrade and end up being about equal to an Armenian champion in strength, while costing 3 times as much in gold, so I wouldn't make them in Imperial Age for combat alone. This is where their other monk attribute comes in though, with the ability to heal roughly as fast as monks, sped up even more by a unique tech. Really, the only monk role they can't fail is conversions, but of course you also have monks available to do that. Whether it's using them as a replacement for siege in a monk and siege push, or simply as a way to secure relics and heal up in the late game, it's a unit that wears a few different hats, including the dapper one they're already wearing. But now let's talk about their unique techs, which go back to reinforcing them as an infantry and naval civilization. Starting in Castle Age, you have the unique tech Cilician Fleet, which has 2 effects. The first is it makes the demo blast radius increase by 33%, which is more impressive than it sounds, as an increase in radius is squared when talking about area, so it's more like a 77% increase to the scale of the explosion. Anyone who played AoE4 in the first month it was released is going to get some flashbacks from this. Its other effect is to increase the galley line and droneman's range by 1. In mass battles, I'd say this is more impactful than the extra arrow bonus, as ships have large hitboxes, so they can often block each other. That 1 extra range allows a second row of ships to immediately jump into the action, and I'd even go as far as say +1 range on water is more important than +1 range for archers on land. Their second unique tech gives infantry, aside from the spear line, plus 30 HP, which includes the warrior priest, and also doubles the healing rate of warrior priest to 240 HP per minute. This instantly gives you top tier champions, tankier than Viking champions for example, and functions as an almost unofficial Imperial Age elite upgrade for Armenian champions and warrior priests as well. 100 HP champions are great not only because they can go toe-to-toe with many other top-tier champions, but because HP also makes them more resistant to archers and hand cannoneers. Personally, I really like that this tech gives you some incentive to go up to Imperial, as while you can get the Barracks upgrades maxed out in Castle Age, there's still something to look forward to a bit later in this tech to reach their final form. So that's the Armenians' unique units and techs, but now let's take a look at the various options they have throughout their relatively broad tech tree, starting with the archers. The main things to note here are you're missing thumb ring and hand cannoneer, but other than that, the archer line or skirmishers aren't too bad. Remember the more effective mule cart techs, which directly impact the archer line's resources, and you also have the Composite Bowman as a potential switch that helps against a few of the archer's scariest counters. It would be completely reasonable to play Armenians as an archer civ, and I'd give them a B+, with a pretty solid crossbow spam that I wouldn't underestimate. Next up for infantry, this is of course their specialty, with all infantry upgrades, early access to many units, plus the warrior monk, which can function as an all-around solid infantry unit in Castle Age. The extra line of sight is handy as well, and especially after the plus 30 HP unique tech, you have among the best champions in the game. I'd give them an A for infantry, and like I said, they're one of the civs I consider to have an actually viable swordsman push in Castle Age, especially if combined with a bit of siege or skirmishers. Moving on to cavalry, it didn't come up so far, but their knights are fully upgraded in the mid-game, so it starts out as a completely reasonable strategy if you want to go scouts into knights for example. The wood bonus and mule cart can help there as well, with getting a solid farming economy up and running. In Imperial Age, things drop off pretty dramatically though, and I'd be careful about over-investing in them at that point. I'd say it's a B, with at least some early game potential. Next up for siege, you're missing bombard cannon and a few of the highest tier upgrades, as well as unfortunately siege engineers. Siege generally pairs nicely with infantry, and even without any direct bonuses, it still benefits from faster lumberjacks and gold miners. I'd give them a C+ for having the basics, but nothing remarkable. Moving on to the Navy, in the early game, the main thing helping is the extra passive arrow for galleys, letting them take otherwise equal fights and hold up to fire galleys a bit better. The wood bonus should really start to add up by late feudal age as well, so I'd give them an A- early on. In the late game is when they really take off though, with the best lumberjacks in the game, above average gold miners, all upgrades except fast fireship, and access to the droneman, which I consider a little more versatile than the cannon galleon thanks to its area damage. After their castle age unique tech, they also nearly have double the area hit by heavy demo ships, plus the potentially longest range galleons in the game. I'd say it's enough for an A+ on water late, or a combined A on water. Taking a quick look at the monastery, or should I say fortified church, not only do you have every tech as well as a bit of a gold mining bonus, but you even get a free relic and the fortified church itself, which I consider a strict upgrade over the regular monastery as a building. Throw in the warrior monk to all but guarantee you the majority of relics, and this is a clear A+. Moving on to defenses, here you're missing a few important techs, and overall I think this is actually a weakness of the civilization. While your economy has a lot of potential, it also takes a while to get rolling, and especially with infantry being your focus, it's easy to fall behind aggressive civilizations. The one upside is the fact that fortified churches can help under pressure, so it's enough for a B, but Georgians are really the civ for you in this expansion if you like a more defensive playstyle. And finally, for their trash units, that is, units that don't cost gold, of course you have early access to the halberdier, but that's not necessarily relevant in trash wars. Clearly, the light cavalry line holds this back, but Armenians get a bonus point for almost certainly having at least one free relic, and quite possibly all of them. The mule cart and better upgrades really shouldn't be overlooked here either, and despite not being a great light cavalry civ by any means, I think they have a lot of potential in other ways, enough for an A- in trash wars. So to give some final thoughts, my impression is Armenians are quite a bit trickier to play than Georgians. They're slow to get rolling and pull you in a few different directions, with infantry, archers, and the fortified church all having something promising to offer, but not always in ways that synergize together. Good archer civs in particular are going to be a struggle for all three, and even the mobility of cavalry civilizations can be frustrating to find a good answer to. Early on, I'd say there's a fair amount of flexibility to go any number of ways, with scouts, 1 or 2 range archers, the militia line paired with skirmishers, or even a fast castle into warrior monks. Even fully upgraded knights in the mid-game could make some sense as the pocket player on a team, and maybe one redeeming quality here is your eco bonus is flexible enough to really do anything above average in the mid-game. The trade-off is they lack a Dark Age bonus, so I don't think they're ever going to be a top 10 civilization on especially open maps. In the late game though, you have great infantry, solid arbalesters, quickly created Composite Bowman, warrior priests to tank damage and heal, plus reasonable trash units and siege options. If there's one challenge in the late game, it's finding a power unit you can base your army composition around. Probably the best thing they're suited for though is of course water maps. Late game Armenians on water or even hybrid maps have a lot of strong options, plus the potential for some very large demo hits. The galleon's +1 range even means you don't really have to micro your galleons in the late game, freeing up a lot of time to just relax and maybe do a bit of fishing. That was the inspiration for my latest side hustle, Spirit of the Lure, tackling all your fishing needs with real good deals. It's been hooking new customers left and right thanks to a great website I made with this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Where websites traditionally take a lot of technical knowledge to set up and maintain, Squarespace is a tool to help you create a professional-looking site within minutes. If you're a blogger, own a small business, or chasing the passive income dream of opening an online store, but have no idea how to make a functional website from scratch, Squarespace has you covered with templates and tools to help you out, simplifying the website building process. Squarespace even has great third-party extensions to handle things like inventory, taxes, shipping, and scheduling to accommodate your specific needs. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/spiritofthelaw to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So that's a look at the new Armenians, and hopefully helps you navigate their various options or have a bit better idea of what to expect next time you match up against them. That'll do it for this one though. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.